And we will be muting you all as you are coming in. And that is just to make sure that our presenters. So welcome to the Voices of Today Virtual Youth Town Hall, sponsored by the KOPE Cyber Lions in partnership with the Drug Enforcement Agency, a 360 program out of the Philadelphia Field Division. And it's the Drug Enforcement Administration to be specific on that. We have quite a few people who are part of this call, who are partners within this movement that is being created. And we wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge each and every single one of you. So we have on the call today, we have the New Jersey MD16, specifically District 16J Leo clubs. We have the Family to Family Federation of Children Mental Health. We have the University of Illinois at Chicago, the Jane Addams School of Social Work. We have, of course, our keynote speakers from the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. We have our partners from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. We have a large contingent from the Delaware Prevention Coalition Youth Leadership Group that are joining us here today. And they are also a part of the Delaware Prevention Partners, which is a statewide initiative that is going. We have the KOPE Cyber Chat Team Zero, who is on the call with us today. We also have the Edgemore Zakat Leos. And finally, last but not least, we have Leading in My Own Way, which is a disability self-advocacy group. And with that, I would like to introduce Lion Kimberly Haynes, who is the charter president of the KOPE Cyber Lions, as well as being the executive director of the Family to Family Federation of Children's Mental Health. So Lion Kimberly, it is all you.
And I just kind of want to make sure you hear me.
Yes.
So I'm glad for everyone that has taken the time to join us today. And we do welcome everyone to our very first Voices of Today Virtual Youth Town Hall. A lot of the work that we do started because as Lions, we are partners with the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, specifically to empower youth leadership to play a vital role in serving their local communities, being a big part of educating their peers about the dangers and ways to stay alcohol, tobacco, and drug-free. So I'm very glad that today is an extension of several projects that we've started in the past, working with youth from, as Lion Daniel mentioned, from the 16J Leos, from the Edgemore Youth, and groups that have come together to take part in an effort such as this. We started by bringing a whole bunch of kids together back in October for Red Ribbon Week, where we were able to create a PSA that is now being shown across the Lions International Foundation websites, and it's been picked up by the DEA. We've also done, overnight with the Bellevue Community Center. And finally, we've ascended on CACA, providing an opportunity for our youth to now be presenters around prevention and education. So before we get started, I do want to just take a few seconds to make sure that we're able to recognize some of the youth that have really been important and a vital part of us coming here together today.
And as Lion Kimberly is pulling that up, I would also like to recognize, I see representatives from the Gloves Against Drugs program from Wilmington, Delaware, who have also joined us today. And also The Cause, Cause the World, also from Delaware, has joined us as well.
So thank you, Lion Daniel. I am working my technical magic this morning, and I appreciate everyone. So I wanted to make sure that as we go into this endeavor, we want to recognize some of the original youth that worked with us. So the work that we do at KOPE is really about empowering youth leaders. So I want to recognize Jameer Mosley, Jasmine Ross, Jewel Mosley, Harmony Wise, Jameer Walker, as well as the Delaware Prevention Coalition. And we'd also like to make a very special shout out to our National Youth Planning Committee. That would be Nishka Mehta, that's Forrest, that's Ronak Sani, and Amar Rashad. So we're going to get a chance to hear from them a little bit later, and we'll also show some examples of some of the work that each of those groups has done around creating activities that they can share with their peers, and things that we'll be asking you all to participate in as well. And so now I think that without further ado, I am going to introduce our resident, one of our in-house technical advisors, who has been instrumental in helping us bring all of these activities together and to provide the opportunity for our youth to engage in things like this National Youth Town Hall. So I'm going to ask Subarna Sani, can you please give us the introduction of our guest speakers?
It is truly my honor to introduce the speakers this afternoon. Good afternoon, Lions, players, and friends. Both these gentlemen are with DEA and involved in community outreach as part of the 360 strategy of Drug Enforcement Administration under Department of Justice. Just a little bit of introduction about both our speakers. Bob Nikopovich is a retired Assistant Special Agent in charge with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. After 30 years of service, throughout his career, Bob worked in various capacities, serving in Buffalo, New York, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Newark, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he retired as an Assistant Special Agent in charge at the DEA Philadelphia Field Division. Bob currently serves as a DEA Community Outreach Specialist for the Philadelphia Field Division, providing drug education, prevention, and community outreach throughout the states of Pennsylvania and Delaware. Bob is a proud husband and father of 2 sons. And now, with great pleasure, I introduce my next speaker, Frank McCartney. Frank is the Division Outreach Coordinator for the Philadelphia Field Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Frank is a civilian who joined DEA in 2010 and has proudly supported the DEA mission of enforcing drug laws, preventing the distribution of illegal narcotics, as well as the diversion of regulated pharmaceuticals. Since 2017, Frank has engaged communities throughout Pennsylvania and Delaware in support of DEA drug prevention initiatives. DEA recognizes the importance of demand reduction through education and is passionate in spreading the spreading live drug-free message to all citizens, especially our youth. Frank is a proud father of 5 children and is happy to have the opportunity to give back to the community through drug prevention and education. And without further ado, I present to you Bob and Frank. Please take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for having us today. Again, my name is Bob Nixaporitz. I'm a community outreach specialist with the DEA Philadelphia Field Division, and I'll be presenting to you today with my partner, Frank McCartney, who's a diversion outreach coordinator also with the DEA Philadelphia Field Division. First of all, we want to thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to talk about such an important subject, drug education and prevention, and also thank each of you for being part of today's town hall. This is a great opportunity for us to not only talk about the dangers and impact of drugs, but also to really build on the knowledge and information that you already have, to also separate some facts from fiction for you, so we can also sharpen your skills and some of your internal tools to be able to make safe, healthy, drug-free decisions. And last but not least, we really want to build on the outstanding partnerships that we have, including the Lions Club, including the KOPE Youth, so we can talk about things that you can do and we can also do in partnership to make our communities safe and drug-free. Now, we normally do these presentations in person, live, and obviously with the pandemic, we had to go virtual like everyone else. So this is the first virtual live presentation we've done, and I think you'll enjoy it. We have a lot of activities planned for you, but also, in order to make it interactive, we put some questions in that we polled throughout the presentation. So that'll give us an idea of get some feedback from you, or get an idea of some of your knowledge. We also encourage you to ask any questions you may have throughout the presentation, and please forward them on the chat box to moderator Keith Taylor, and he'll be raising the questions at the right time for the benefit of everybody here today. So without further ado, thank you again, and if we can go to the next slide, I appreciate it. Okay, so DEA. So we're from the Philadelphia Field Division, and we cover the states of Pennsylvania and Delaware. Now, tough work, vital mission. Let's learn some facts about DEA. Next slide, please. Now, you see a map of the United States, and you see a world map. So DEA is a federal law enforcement agency. We're within the Department of Justice. And we have a single mission, and that is to enforce the federal drug statutes or laws. And we do this by investigating and dismantling international drug cartels, what we often refer to as transnational criminal organizations. DEA has about 10,000 employees worldwide. That includes about 5,000 special agents, which are criminal investigators. We have diversion investigators. We have chemists. We have pilots. We have intelligence analysts, and many other positions with specialized interests. So if you look at the map of the United States, we're divided into 23 divisions, and the Philadelphia Division, again, covers 2 states, Pennsylvania and Delaware, and we are located in 232 cities throughout the country. Now, if you look at the bottom map, drug trafficking is a global trade, so we have to have a global presence. DEA has offices in over 90 offices in the foreign office. So if you go to the next slide, please. We have a pretty simple strategy. It's a 3-pronged strategy to accomplish our mission. The first I talked about briefly was law enforcement. And that is a critical mission of ours and our primary mission. The whole idea is to reduce the supply and availability of drugs in our country. The second prong of the 3-pronged approach is the diversion control program. And this program concentrates primarily on the pharmaceutical drugs. We monitor, regulate, and investigate DEA registrants. And the registrant is a doctor, pharmacist, nurse, hospital, manufacturer, distributor, and others that are located throughout the country. To give you an idea of this task, we have about 78,000 registrants in Pennsylvania and about over 6,000 in Delaware. So the third prong is a community outreach. That's what Frank and I do. In order to complement our enforcement efforts that are addressing the supply and availability of drugs, we try to reduce the demand for drugs, and we do this through education and prevention. And that's why you are here today, and we really appreciate and recognize how crucial the partnerships are to work together to accomplish this mission. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to piggyback on what Bob said. We're really excited to be here today. This is a phenomenal opportunity, and typically Bob and I present to many students in a live format. And this is the message that we usually start with, this slide, and we want you to keep this in mind as we progress through the presentation. What we're talking about is an audience such as yourself that I would think ranges in the age between 13 and 15. And for you people specifically, you still have roughly 8 to 10 years left in your brain development. And when you think about that, that's pretty awesome to think that you still have 10 years before you reach your greatest potential, your greatest brain potential, okay? But understand something. If you start using substances like drugs or alcohol or even tobacco, that's going to have a negative impact on you reaching your fullest potential. I want to point out 2 things on this slide. One is that when young people such as yourself have a perception that drug use is harmful or risky, the likelihood of you using drugs dramatically declines. And that's what we hope to achieve today. Along with the fact that if you as a young person do not get involved in drug use or put off drug use, addiction and other substance disorders are greatly reduced. Next slide, please. And again, we have another slide focusing in on the brain. As you can see, the 2 top graphics show the brain from the top side and the bottom side. Both are healthy. But as you go around the circle, you'll see the brain and how it's impacted by years of different abuse of a variety of substances. Everything from alcohol, cocaine, meth, opioids, marijuana, okay? What it does, the brain is like a sponge, and these products slowly deteriorate the brain, and it's hard to recapture, if you can recapture, what the original brain looks like. Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk a little bit about addiction, and I think it varies, and usually we talk to the audience and try to get their input on how they perceive or define addiction. But what we'll tell you today is that addiction is both physical and psychological. And depending upon what you're addicted to, it can be awfully hard to break or to get away from. Some of the drugs that we'll talk about today will show you what impact it has on how we think and how a person may react physically. Later on in the slide, there will be resources for you to take a look at so you get more information on this. And the other thing that Bob and I are committed to talking about is stigma. And if you look up the word stigma, I looked it up this morning, it's a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. Understand that a lot of people suffering from addiction have this stigma attached. And with this stigma, I have spoken to people that have been negatively impacted in seeking treatment or recovery, and even in discussing prevention because of the stigma associated with that, with drug use. So it's important that you understand that that's out there as well. Next slide, please. Mixed messages. It's amazing. This generation especially is offered so many different platforms of communication. You're bombarded with messages from the radio, TV, movies, social media. But it's important to understand that a lot of times drug use is often glamorized and looked as something that is cool or a hip thing to do. And rarely do they ever go into the full explanation of what those repercussions could be. Bob and I had a great opportunity of working with people in the recovery field and working with members of the community that are currently going through recovery. And one gentleman who was about my age shared a story where he has used drugs since he was a teenager. And when he originally started using drugs, it was fun, it was cool, it was like a high life type of thing. But as time went on, the addictions grew, and unfortunately, the allure of the drug use wore off pretty quickly. He shared with us that he has lost relationships, he's lost jobs, income, his home, his freedom. He was incarcerated for different drug offenses. So it's important that you understand the full story. And I had promised him that I would always share that with anybody that we speak to in the community. Next, please. Legal, okay? There's a lot of substances out there that are legal. For example, cigarettes, alcohol, vaping, okay? Most of us know that cigarette smoking is not very good for your health. We have done a great job as a society in educating people on the harmful effects of cigarette smoking. It's still legal, but again, not good for you. Alcohol is another drug that is highly abused in our society. It is also legal, and along with vaping, which is a relatively new phenomenon that we'll cover in more details in a few slides. But the whole point of putting this slide up here is a few years back, one of my first presentations was to a group of Boy Scouts. And I had one Boy Scout argue the merits of marijuana and stating that it was going to be legal, okay? And he was correct. It is legal in a lot of different states and cities. However, federally, it's still illegal. And it is not good for you. Okay, so to this example that always remember that just because something's legal and you can buy it at a store doesn't mean it's necessarily the best choice for you, especially if you have a brain that's just starting to develop fully. Okay, next slide.
Okay, this is a really hot topic, marijuana. And we think it's a really prime example of some of the mixed messages and misinformation that's out there. So what we talk about marijuana, we always focus on the harm and the impact it can have on teens and young adults. So let's talk about the legality, just to follow up what Frank said. Okay, marijuana is illegal at the federal level. Know that. So it is, you can be prosecuted for trafficking in marijuana at the federal level. Now, medical marijuana has been legalized in 33 states and the District of Columbia. Now, Pennsylvania and Delaware are included in that. So recreational marijuana, which is just using marijuana either to get high or just for whatever purpose someone wants to, recreational marijuana is legal in 11 states and the District of Columbia. And know that Pennsylvania and Delaware are also attempting to legalize recreational marijuana for adults. So as we talk about marijuana, before we go any further, I think it's a good time to really ask a couple of polling questions, because there's a couple important concepts you need to understand. So if you don't mind, can we go to the next slide to the first polling question, please? Okay. So what is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that gets you high? So what we want to do is give you about 30 or 45 seconds to answer that, and then Mr. Keith will show the toll.
So you should all be seeing on your screen now a poll related to this. If you just click your answers, it will be tallying them, and then we will share them up. So I'm seeing about almost 30 of you have answered so far. Some good answers coming in. We've had about 40 seconds so far. All right, so we've got close to 35 answers and responses. And there we go. We are going to end the poll. So thank you for participating, and share our results here. And so the majority of you, 61%, answered that THC was the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that gets you high. 14% said CBD, and 9% said cannabinoids. So Agent Bob, which one of those answers is correct?
Okay, great job. THC is the correct answer. And this is a very important term to understand. THC stands for delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Obviously, it's a lot easier saying THC. And what that is, the easiest way to explain what that is, it's the active ingredient in marijuana that gets you high. You consider it how potent the marijuana is. So obviously, the more potent that it is, the more harmful effects and impact it can have on the body. Especially, again, I always go back to the impact it has on young people. So knowing about THC, because we're going to talk about that a lot when we talk about marijuana. So think about this. Years ago, when the people were smoking marijuana in joints or pipes, the THC levels in some of the common street-grade marijuana was in the single digits, maybe 4 to 5%. Today, it is up in the 20s and even higher. There are also marijuana concentrates and cannabis oils that we'll talk about. Cannabis just being the plant that marijuana comes from. And the THC levels in these substances can be as high as in the 80s and 90s. So again, when we focus on the impact and the possible harm to teens, then we really start to understand how this can really be hurtful for you, that we really want to educate you. And we talk a lot about marijuana. So on the same subject, if we can go to the next poll question, please. Next slide. Thank you. Very simple, true or false question. You cannot overdose on marijuana. So take about 30 or 45 seconds and see what you think.
All right, so we are having about 25, 28% of you who have started to answer. So that is great. Oh, we've got almost now, almost 40 coming through. Okay, excellent. All right, and we'll give it another 2 or 3 seconds for all of you to do, and let's share those results here. So we have 63% of the youth that are on this call are saying that it is false, that you cannot overdose on marijuana, which would mean that you can overdose on marijuana. Is that correct?
That's correct. Great job, everyone. And know this, it's very important. And this is a controversial question, too. We understand that. And because we ask this question because we want to get you thinking. First of all, overdose. Many marijuana proponents will talk about overdose as if it's not fatal, then it's really not considered an overdose. That's not the case. When you overdose, you're basically taking something, a substance, in this case, marijuana or any other drug, that may be harmful to you or taking more than your body can handle. Okay? So the fact is you can overdose on marijuana. Some doctors and others use different terms for it. They can call it a adverse reaction or a medical condition. But the fact is that emergency rooms in hospitals around the country treat people all the time with adverse reactions, conditions, and overdosing on marijuana use. And this includes teens and adults. Now, we'll talk about vaping in a little bit, but vaping, which includes the THC oils, a high concentrate of cannabis oils with high THC levels, that has actually killed people. So it can be fatal. This is a really good time to share with you some facts and separate the facts from fiction about marijuana. And again, especially focusing on the impact it has on teens and young adults. Now, Mr. Frank talked about addiction. And know this, addiction it not only affects your body, but it affects your brain. It is a complex disease that affects both. And also you may hear, and we refer to it oftentimes as substance use disorder because it is a disorder. Now, marijuana is clearly addictive. Now, when we talk about the brain, we talk about your developing bodies, you are at risk even more and the risk of the harm and addiction because of the fact that your brains and bodies have not yet fully developed. So marijuana can affect your memory, your concentration, your motivation, your coordination. It can affect your school, your athletic performance. It also causes people often to withdraw from their interest. Long-term marijuana has been shown to show a decrease in your IQ of up to 8 points, and it can cause many other serious long-term illnesses, such as depression and others. Very important fact that research has proven is that people that use marijuana before the age of 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely to develop a marijuana use disorder. Okay, that's very important to understand. Again, we're focusing on teens and young adults. Now, you may have heard the term gateway drug. So in this instance, in regarding marijuana, basically there's a lot of controversy about this as well. Whether marijuana causes people to go on to use the so-called harder drugs like cocaine, crack, heroin, methamphetamine. So let's separate the facts from fiction. Now, all the harms I just told you are all fact. Now, there are a lot of marijuana users in the country, unfortunately. But know this, most marijuana users don't go on to use the so-called harder drugs. However, and it's a big however, most of those that do use these so-called harder drugs started with marijuana. That's very important to understand. And if they didn't start with marijuana, they started with alcohol or tobacco products or a combination of the above. That's why we talk about those 3 substances in the beginning of our presentation. Frank and I have talked to so many people in recovery, and we always ask them, what can we tell kids? What can we tell young adults? And they're always telling us, we hear it time and time again, how they started with marijuana. So let's talk about some types of marijuana. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay. I'm sure you've all heard about edibles. And Mr. Frank talked about, the perception is so important. And unfortunately, we see when we talk to so many students and young adults, we hear that, there's a low perception of danger for edibles. All edibles are is marijuana that's infused into a product that you either eat or drink. And I'll show you some pictures shortly. So marijuana concentrates is basically a mass of concentrated THC. Oftentimes looks like a little ball of wax. It's called wax, butter, and other names. Very high concentrates, could be up into the 80s and 90% THC levels. And then there's marijuana buds. That's what's usually smoked or vaped, or it's also not vape, but it's usually put in pipes and bongs. And again, high THC levels. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what you see, let's talk about edibles now. So we see a brownie, some gummy bears, some Rice Krispie treats, and some pastries and cakes. These are all very common things that we all eat, we all enjoy. Snacks, okay. Now, these are all infused with marijuana. So what you have to understand about that is that with medical marijuana, these could be at someone's house that is getting medical marijuana. Many people have gone to the hospital not knowing. You could be at a friend's house and possibly try something, not knowing. These products are supposed to be marked that they have THC in them, that they're marijuana products, but they are not always, okay? Next slide, please. Again, could be edible, it could be something you eat, a solid or a liquid. And these look like delicious drinks, right? Smoothies. I mean, everybody likes smoothies. Everybody likes drinks like this. And take a look at the packaging and how they're very appealing, okay? And that's on purpose. So when we talk about edibles, there's a very important differentiation between smoking or vaping marijuana, okay? And what it is this. When you smoke marijuana, either in joints or a pipe, or you might be vaping it, that marijuana goes into your lungs and into your bloodstream very rapidly. So you have an effect very quickly. The difference with edibles is your body has to digest it, and it takes a longer time. Depending on your body chemistry and other factors, it can take 30 to 90 minutes before that actually has effect. So why do we bring this up? Because when people are eating marijuana edibles, let's say, for instance, chocolate chip cookies. Most people like chocolate chip cookies. Most people don't eat just one. So what happens is people start eating them, and first of all, they haven't felt the effect after they have one cookie. So they usually have another one and then another one. That's what causes oftentimes for a buildup. And then when the THC finally kicks in, it overwhelms your body. That is so common. We have had infants around the country that have actually seen these products around the house and have been taken to the hospital for ingesting them. Pets actually also have accidentally ingested these. Now, I will give you an example that last year, it was kind of disturbing. Frank and I went to a school in Philadelphia. There was a 7th grade class that 15 kids brought in Rice Krispie treats, and they were infused with marijuana. The 15 kids got sick. Some of them got medical attention. Luckily, no one got seriously injured. And we went and we actually talked to one of the girls that was involved with that, and she had no idea of the magnitude and how, harmful that could have been. And what happened was, you might be asking, like, where did they get this product from? So Mr. Frank talked about social media. Social media is great in so many ways, and it can be so harmful when glamorized things. But basically, these kids got this marijuana from an adult on Instagram, which is really sad. So you on the next slide, please. So we're talking about vaping, and most people have heard about this. We're talking about electronic cigarettes and vaping. We'll keep it all in one class. Really, vaping has not been around that long. It became popular around 2007, started being introduced into the United States. And vaping initially, electronic cigarettes and vaping devices were introduced as a safer alternative for people to quit smoking cigarettes because they were addicted to nicotine. So in principle, that's a good theory. But the problem with it is that vaping, you could vape tobacco, which it's a nicotine product, which is in tobacco that gets you addicted. But what happens is the nicotine is in so many of the e-liquids that people vape. And you can also vape cannabis oil. And again, knowing about the THC levels, that's extremely dangerous. So what happens is a lot of kids are vaping not only the nicotine oils, but also the cannabis oils. And if you ever heard of a Juul, basically a Juul is one of the most popular vaping devices. And what it does is the Juul pods contain nicotine and are in flavorings. There's about 7,000 flavors on the market, not just with Juul, but many other companies. And the lion's share of them contain nicotine, again, which is so addictive. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, I'm not saying that vaping or electronic cigarettes can be a good thing or an alternative for adults that are trying to quit smoking, but they were introduced as a safer, not a safe alternative. So let's look at August 2019. The first death related to electronic cigarettes and vaping was reported. Since that time, up until February 18th of this year, we've had 68 deaths in the United States, 2,807 illnesses. That includes the deaths, by the way. And the illness is referred to as a valley because it has to do with vaping. Now, the majority, approximately 82% of these illnesses were from vaping cannabis oils. And marijuana proponents talk about how they say it came from the black market. However, research has shown not all of them have. And also, not all of them were from marijuana, obviously. In today's times, with the COVID-19, we have so many other precautions that we have to take. And when you're vaping, even nicotine or cannabis oils, you are taking an increased chance of contracting COVID-19. And also, research has shown that teens are almost 4 times more likely to start smoking after vaping, even though most of the kids that we talk to, they despise smoking and say they would never start. But research has shown that they at some point do. So when you look at vaping, we have seen skyrocketing numbers of teens that do it. Okay, there's a Monitoring the Future survey in 2018 where teens from 8th grade up until high school seniors, huge increases that were not only vaping nicotine, but also marijuana. Now, one of the things that's really appealing is the flavors that I spoke about, and also the advertisements that appeal to the young people. And a Juul pod, one of the Juul pods that contains the nicotine e-juice is like smoking a pack of cigarettes. So The other thing is that when they did the survey, the Monitoring the Future survey, the teens were asked, even though vaping was supposed to be for adults, the majority of the teens said that they had easy access to these products. So it's very important to understand. So I think now, talking about marijuana, let's just take a side note here and go to poll number 3. It's another important question. Okay, we want you to answer this, please. Although the term is misleading, what drug is often referred to as fake weed or fake marijuana? You can take a couple minutes to answer that.
Okay, and we are loading that question here. So although the term is misleading, what drug is often referred to as fake weed or fake marijuana? Is it kratom or cat, marijuana concentrates, MDMA or Molly, or K2 or spice? Okay, we're showing good engagement, 35 votes in so far. All right, 36, 37 coming up. Excellent. And we will close the poll there and show the results. All right, so it shows that 59% says that it is K2 or spice. 19% said MDMA or Molly. 11% said marijuana concentrates, and also 11% also said kratom or cat. So what is the correct answer, sir?
Okay, great job, everyone, again. The answer is K2 or spice. And basically, it is misleading because K2 or spice is a synthetic cannabinoid, okay? It's not synthetic marijuana, but what that is actually a synthetic version of THC. That's why it's so important to understand THC. So basically what K2 or spice is, it's an herb or a plant that's sprayed with some really toxic chemicals. Sometimes it could look like marijuana. Oftentimes it looks like incense or potpourri. So these toxic chemicals often come from overseas, places like Asia. They have very, very dangerous effects, and they could be very addictive. So what they try to do is, when they spray these chemicals, it tries to mimic the effects of THC. That's where the synthetic or fake weed term comes in, because people think that oftentimes with weed, it's because of the THC, it has the same effect. This is actually so dangerous, so addictive. Now, some of the effects are very serious. They can include increased heart rate, uncontrollable behavior, panic attacks, convulsions, and many other harmful effects. And one of the easiest ways to explain to you about K2 spice is by showing you a short video that I think speaks for itself. Now, I'll warn you ahead of time, this is a very graphic video. So if you're uncomfortable in any way, please turn your volume down or opt out for the time being. So if you can go to the next slide, please. And the prompt is at the bottom. Okay, I'm not sure if you heard the sound or not. I did not pick it up on my end, but what you see here is a video of someone that used K2 spice. And here's a girl, whether we don't even know if she knew what she was taking or not. But again, talk about the erratic and uncontrollable behavior. And she's on the street laying there screaming, okay? And I did not hear it on my end, but what you can hear is, you got the sound, is that people in the background are laughing. And someone is saying to hold her down because she's uncontrollable. Now, picture someone like this if they went into cardiac arrest. People were actually laughing on the video. And when we show this video to teens and young adults, the first thing they notice is the laughter in the back, which is so sad. Now, the important thing about this is that K2 splice, this could be so deadly, and it is addictive as well. And the harm for this, again, it goes back to the marijuana having such a low perception of harm for marijuana. Same thing with K2 splice. If you can go to the next slide, please.
Okay, so far we've talked about a lot of illicit or illegal drugs, street drugs, but there is also something that is of concern, and they would be legal prescription drugs. For example, a painkiller, or in some cases, psychostimulants. It's important that you understand that these medicines, when used properly, are good. They help people with their medical conditions. However, the problem comes in when people misuse or abuse prescription drugs. And as you all probably have in your own home, you have a medicine cabinet, and there may be medicines in there that are assigned to another member of your household. Misuse or abuse would be an example of someone taking those medications assigned to someone else in the household and using it or abusing it for a high, okay, which is extremely dangerous. We have a video that's following, and hopefully we'll have sound with it. But to let you understand that with prescription opioids, the addiction is very, very intense. The prior video showed a woman having a physical response, a seizure to a drug. And the next video will show more of what the psychological hold that opioids have on someone. Before we go to that video, I just want to point out counterfeit pills. Counterfeit pills are pills that are made on the street to look like legitimate prescription pills. The thing is that things that are made on the street are not made by anyone that has a chemistry degree or a pharmaceutical degree, but usually people trying to push drugs and make money. Bob's going to talk about fentanyl a little bit in more detail, but please be aware that counterfeit pills often include really lethal and toxic elements that are not good at all. Do you want to try the next video, and we'll see if we can get some sound on that as well? Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, I don't think we're getting the sound, but I'm going to tell you real quickly, give you a summary. This is a video of a young man who tried Oxy at a party. Before he knew it, he became addicted. And it's a true story. It shows to what extent an opioid addiction has on you, where he went into his father's garage and grabbed a hammer and broke his hand to get more prescription opioids. Okay, he had that dependence just after a few short days. So that's an illustration of how addiction can impact the brain. Next slide, please.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about heroin. So we have an opioid epidemic in this country, and heroin has been a major problem, especially in the northeast quadrant of the United States for years, okay? The gateways to heroin, Mr. Frank just talked about the prescription drugs, and painkillers are so important. And oftentimes, we talk about gateways to heroin. It was so common for people that were using prescription painkillers, opioids, some of them for legitimate reasons, that unintentionally got addicted. And then before you know it, they couldn't get a prescription anymore, and then led to them buying a bag of heroin on the street, which could be as cheap as $5. So you have many people in occupations that actually got injured and were taking painkillers and wound up addicted to heroin. Also, many athletes at the high school, college, and professional level that have gotten addicted to not only pain pills, but some have also turned to heroin. So that transition is very common, unfortunately. Now, in the Philadelphia area, and in this, generally in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, the price of the heroin, like I said, was very cheap. On the street, it's about $5. The purity is so high. Years ago, the purity of heroin on the street was in the single digits. We've seen heroin street bags that are as pure as 60 or 70%. So imagine that when we talk about the impact on your body. Next slide, please. Now, to make things worse, there's a drug called fentanyl. It's a synthetic opioid, and it's about 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. Morphine is made from a poppy plant that's made in opium. It's made in the morphine, then it's made into heroin. So imagine how strong that is. First of all, there's a pharmaceutical and medical use for legitimate fentanyl. That's not what we're talking about. That's used as an analgesic and an anesthetic. For the most part, it's used for cancer patients. That's how strong the drug is. What I'm going to talk about now is the illicit fentanyl. The fentanyl that is made in clandestine labs, many in China, also substances that are brought over, chemicals that are also made in Mexico. So this is a major and deadly threat. Fentanyl is killing more people in our country than ever before, than any drug right now. And often it's used as a cut in heroin and other drugs. When I say cut, it could be it's usually added as a powder, and it's added to heroin. Sometimes it's adulterated, which means it actually enhances the purity, makes it even stronger. And other times, if it's a lower quality, it may be to dilute it, but it increases the quantity. So that is so common where the fentanyl is being used as a cut, and we're seeing it in other drugs as well. Cocaine, methamphetamine, and many people on the street have no idea what they're buying. Some of these substances are all fentanyl. And some of these counterfeit drugs that Mr. Frank talked about also contain fentanyl. Next slide, please. So I think a picture depicts exactly the harm here. If you take a look at the penny on the left-hand side, that is a lethal dose of fentanyl that can kill someone, okay? Even more scary, an analog is called carfentanil. And there's many analogs of fentanyl, many different forms or versions, if you will. Take a look at that little speck on the right-hand side. Carfentanil is about 10,000 times more potent than morphine. That is an elephant tranquilizer. That's what that's used for. So you can imagine how potent that is. And unfortunately, sometimes drug dealers are mixing their drugs not just with fentanyl, but with carfentanil. So you can imagine how dangerous this is on the street to somebody that, you know, many people have overdosed and died, and we'll talk about very shortly. Next slide, please.
Okay, this slide basically just shows you the variety of different street drugs. And at the end, we have a Get Smart About Drug resource. It's a website where you can look up a variety of drugs and what their impacts are, both physically and mentally, and what the signs of abuse are. But I want to draw your attention to the upper left-hand corner where it shows polydrug abuse. That's where a person takes more than one drug. And like Bob said earlier, some people that are involved with heroin or other heavier drugs use a combination of drugs, okay? So it's important to understand the risks, as is highlighted below, of drug use, and that it can lead to polydrug use and abuse. Next, please.
This is very sad and very tragic, but we have lost so many people in this country over the years to drug overdose. So if you look at this slide here, in 2018, right in the middle, 67,367 people. That's how many people died of a drug overdose in 1 year in 2018. That is 185 people a day. Imagine a plane crashing every day, losing 185 people. Delaware, where we have our partners, Delaware lost 400. That's over one a day. Philadelphia lost 1,116. That's over 3 a day. And the important thing to understand about this, these are not just statistics. These are actually people in all of our communities that have families, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents. When you add the family members up and the impact, you are talking about millions of people, unfortunately. So in order to show the magnitude of this problem, if you go to the next slide, please. So we have the Lincoln Financial Field where the Philadelphia Eagles play. Now, take a look. Every single seat is full, and you have the players and the staff on the field. So if you go to the next slide, please. If you took 1 year in 2018, they're all gone. To me, that depicts the magnitude of this problem. When people have gone into the Eagle Stadium, the first thing they notice is how gigantic it is. When you see every seat full, that's 1 year of people that we lost in this country. So I think now is a good time to go to the next slide, because when we talk about drug overdose deaths and the impact, we can go to poll number 4, please.
Okay, of the 67,367 people that died of a drug overdose in 2018, what percentage was opioid related?
And that poll is now up. So was it 80%, 68%, 48%, or 36% of the 67,367 people that died of a drug overdose in 2018? What percentage was opioid related? And let us end the polling there. So we have 54% who believe that it was 68% of the people, and the second highest number of people voting is for the 80%. So what is the answer to that?
It would be 68%. And when we talk about opioids, we're talking about both illegal and legal. Illegal when it comes to heroin and fentanyl, legal when it comes to prescription opioids. Thank you. Next. There's a lot of famous people that you may have heard of in the news that have died of an opioid addiction, overdosed. No one is immune, no matter how famous, no matter how talented, no matter what your color, your sex, no one is immune from addiction and possible overdose and death. So I'm sure I don't need to go through all these people. You probably recognize most of them. Next. This next slide is very sad because it shows someone that none of us know. However, they're just as important and just as valuable as the people that are famous, okay? This poor person died on the railroad tracks in Philadelphia of an opioid overdose. Next.
Now, before I ask you this next question, it's important to understand we have some good news and a good trend. The overdose deaths in the United States have been increasing and skyrocketing for years. So from 2017 to 2018, we actually saw a reduction in deaths, about 4.1%. Not that high, but it's a step in the right direction. And again, every death, every loss is tragic. So part of that loss was due to something that we're going to talk about shortly. And hopefully some of it was also due to drug education and prevention, which we have to continue our efforts and be diligent all along. So let's start with poll number 5 now. What is the name of the nasal spray medication that emergency personnel and others use to reverse opioid overdose?
Is it hydromorphone? Is it methadone? Is it naloxone or Subsys? Okay, so it looks about 90% of you have voted already. Let us see what the answer is. So 71% selected naloxone and Narcan. So what is the correct answer?
Great job, everyone. Again, if you can go to the next slide, please. Naloxone or Narcan, as it's called. Okay. And we are so encouraged by your knowledge, and we really appreciate that. And it's so encouraging to see this. So Narcan, this is very important to understand. This has saved tens of thousands of lives. Now, next to it is a medication called Ezio. That's a little more complicated and a little more costly. Many of the emergency personnel have that as well. So most states have a standing order where you don't even need a prescription anymore to get Narcan due to the opioid epidemic that we're in. Now, very important to understand, Narcan reverses opioid overdoses. It doesn't always work, but it has saved tens of thousands of lives in this country. Now, it will not work on other non-opioids. So when we talk about opioids, we're talking about heroin, fentanyl, we're talking about prescription painkillers like Vicodin, Oxycontin, Percocet. It won't work on cocaine. It won't work on methamphetamine and other drugs. So the important thing to understand about that is it has saved many lives. But if somebody is using poly drugs, for instance, has heroin and cocaine in their system, the Narcan will have no effect on the non-opioid or the cocaine. So, but this has saved so many lives, and we think that's a big part of why there's been a reduction in deaths too. We have so many people in society today that carry Narcan. It could be librarians, could be teachers in schools. We have it at community groups that are carrying it all around. All the emergency personnel, DEA, police, they all carry it as well. Next slide, please.
Okay, now we're going to shift things a little bit. And typically when we do this shift, we go into some of the factors involved as far as risk factors, motivational factors, protective factors when it comes to the topic of drug use. So we typically ask people this question: why do people use drugs? And it's always fascinating to get the answers. Once we conduct the poll, I'll give you more information on what your answers mean.
Okay, so why do people use drugs? And there's a couple of answers that you can choose from here. All right, let's see what people have. The majority, 37%, say that peer pressure is the reason why people use drugs. We have quite a few who say that depression is part of the reason, addiction is part of the reason, bad decisions, and the smallest amount, 3, answered fun.
Well, guess what? You're all right, okay? Go to the next slide, please. It's always amazing how instinctful people are when it comes to this topic. They sort of sense why people do drugs. And these are the official survey answers, okay? To relieve that boredom, to feel good, forget their troubles and relax, satisfy their curiosity, ease their pain. And that pain could be emotional or physical, feel grown up, show their independence, belong to a specific group. But I want to draw your attention again to the top of that screen where it says teens who perceive little risk in using drugs are more likely to use drugs. So that's where it's really important to understand the risk. Next slide, please. And in speaking about risk, there's many risk factors that go into consideration. And you may look at this list and say, oh my gosh, I have 10 of the 10 risk factors. All of us have risk factors. Some have a few, some have many. But what's important to understand about risk factors is if you have an awareness that you have, for example, a genetic predisposition towards drug or alcohol abuse, then you know inside that perhaps it's not a good thing for you to pursue. Other risk factors include low grades, failure in school, victim of bullying or cyberbullying, low self-esteem, permissive parenting, mental health, trauma, anxiety, depression, adverse childhood experiences, peer pressure, parent or older sibling that have drug or alcohol abuse issues, genetic predisposition, community with a high tolerance for smoking, drinking, and drug use, attending a school without strict rules for tobacco, drugs, and alcohol, okay? Again, on the very bottom there, perception of little risk is a risk factor, okay? So hopefully today, at the end of this session, you will have a true appreciation as to what those risk factors are. And real briefly, I just want to go back to self-esteem and how important it is that you maintain for yourself a high self-esteem, because you're the #1 person responsible for your own self-esteem. And you achieve that by being the best person you can be. Okay, next, please. And fortunately, we have protective factors as well. A strong caregiver or a bond with a parent, a high self-esteem, being involved like you guys are in a prevention program, all of these work in your favor in protecting you. And I want to point out something that's really important that you need to understand, especially if you have younger siblings or younger cousins at home, that you are a protective factor. They will look at you as an example on how to approach the issues of drugs. So it's important that you share your knowledge with them. And again, I know that a lot of you will be going out into the community to share this knowledge, and you will be a protective factor for many other people. Next, please. This we put up because as you grow older, okay, through high school, through college, through adulthood, you're going to be placed in situations where you may feel that peer pressure or be in a situation where all of a sudden somebody starts using drugs in your presence and may put pressure on you to join them. As part of your virtual toolbox, you're going to need to have strategies in place that you can get yourself out of those situations. So we just threw out some remarks there, but it's definitely worth thinking about, like, what will I do next year when I go to high school or when I enter college and I'm in this situation? How will I handle it? What will be my fallback to get out of that situation? Next, please. Finding your passion. It sounds corny, but it really, really is important. People need to have passions. You need to find in life, again, part of your virtual toolbox, things that bring you happiness, things that you can go to when life is giving you a hard time, okay? A lot of people who abuse substances abuse it to escape from their realities. Well, there's a positive way in which you can escape an unpleasant reality, and that could be through art, through dance, through shopping, through sports, your choice. But the important thing is have it as your go-to in a situation where you need to escape instead of using drugs or alcohol. Next, please. You guys are really at a very exciting point in life. And when I tell you, you can do anything you want in the future, I am sincere. I've watched my own children choose what they want to do and pursue it and enjoy that travel. There's no reason why you cannot be who you want to be, okay? But I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. If drugs are part of your future, then your future is going to be limited. Drugs are dream killers, okay? Always remember that they do nothing to make you a better person or to help you achieve your dreams. Next, please. And with DEA, we offer a variety of careers. Okay, we have a special agent, diversion investigators, intelligent analysts, chemists, pilots, legal counsel, technical specialists, computer technicians, polygrapher, demand reduction, and community outreach. These are just some of the things you can do serving a great institution that has a great mission, and that is elimination of drugs and drug abuse. Next, please.
So this is a really important question, poll number 7. So every time we go out and talk, we ask 6 and 7, what are the reasons why people use drugs? What are the most important reasons why you won't use drugs? So if you can take about 30 or 45 seconds to answer this question, appreciate it.
All right. So 48% said my future. 39% said life goals. 9% said sports, and that's a really good answer. And 3% said their friends. Their friends are the reason that they won't do drugs. So that is positive peer reinforcement as well. So that is some great answers there.
Absolutely. And I want to tell you, it's so encouraging, again, hearing this. Your answers are so consistent with what we see in other teens and young adults that we talk to. So, and there's really no right or wrong answer. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be a combination of reasons. As long as they're all healthy reasons, that's good. And the reason why this question is so important, because we use that information when we set up programs and talk to young teens and adults. We need to give them information that's grassroots, that comes right from you yourself, because what are the most influential factors, okay? Also, when we talk to people in recovery, we always ask them, what is it that you did? What led you to use drugs in the first place? What can we tell teens and young adults so we can learn from your experience and they not go down that path? And so many of them are so helpful. And these are some of the things that they regret, that people in recovery, that they lost opportunities to do. So kudos to everyone on these answers. We really appreciate it, and it's so consistent with everything that we hear all the time. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is really a chance for us to drill down as we wind down with the community outreach and some of the things that we talk about. Again, our efforts are critical to complementing our enforcement mission, okay? And the community outreach encompasses so many different areas and the partners involved. So let's talk about some ideas that you can do and we can all do together, and that you're doing already as well. So please go to the next slide. And it's a call to action. What can you do to be part of drug education and drug prevention efforts? There are many things. The Lions Leo program is one, with various outreach activities all throughout the year. DEA has red ribbon events and contests. We have video contests. We have photo contests. We have all different activities throughout the year, especially focusing in October, which will be this year for the whole month of October. You can participate in national and local events. Today is the last day of National Prevention Week. All year long, there are different events that you can take part in. As teens, you can make PSA video clips. There's nothing better than seeing motivated teens giving good, healthy, drug-free messages to their peers. It's so impactful. You can assist in presentations to other youth as peers, and we plan to do that with you as well in our partnership. You may have some special skills. Some of you may be real good artists. Some of you may be real good at certain athletics. It could be music. It could be anything. You can actually help younger kids and teach them a hobby or something that they enjoy. So never sell yourself short. You can always plug in so many different areas. Be a leader in your school and help spread the prevention message. Promote take-back events where we really promote the safe disposal of unused medication. And last but not least, I know you were sent a video link of a youth summit that DEA did with the Lions Club and many other partners. That was in Sussex County, Delaware. It was a great day where we went into an elementary school. We spent the whole day with a number of breakout sessions, all fun, healthy activities. We had a presentation. We had a spinning wheel with a quiz. We showed impairment goggles. We had a police canine dog do a presentation. We had a dance presentation, all interactive. We had drug-free pledges. And students, high school students, and the Leos were part of it, acting as role models for the younger students who were 3rd to 5th grade. So these are all ideas that we can all partner in the future on, and many others. Next slide, please.
Okay, as we close out, first I want to say again, thank you for this opportunity and thank you for your participation and involvement. We're really excited to hear about some of your own initiatives that you'll be taking on for drug prevention education. But things I want you to remember, number one, is that brain development and the impact that drug has, especially on someone like your age, in your teens. Marijuana is harmful and it is addictive, and you can be overwhelmed by too much marijuana use. Vaping and edibles, the myth of being safe, and who are they safe for? The misuse of pills, how addictive and deadly prescription pills can be, and very deadly as far as counterfeit pills. A slippery slope, understanding that a lot of times people will enter a door, whether that's through alcohol or marijuana, and for some, but not all, it can lead to a lot more heavier addictions and a lot more problems. It's just not a risk worth taking. Decisions today can affect the rest of your life, okay? So understand that if you're in high school and you get arrested for a drug felony, that will prevent you, for example, from getting federal aid for your college admission and therefore impacting your future for the rest of your life. Okay, false perception that all teens use drugs. And this is a big falsehood that a lot of teens are always amazed to hear, that only about 25% of teens actually do drugs. The majority stay away from the drugs, which is good. Drugs are dream killers, don't forget about that. And things about healthy activities, understanding the importance of really building your self-esteem, really building into your life healthy activities that can make you a happier person. And understand why won't you use drugs. Adopt that for your own personal way of navigating in the future, why you won't use drugs, why it's important that you will not let yourself down. Next slide, please. And just some final thoughts. It's really, really important to be the difference. And I'm really, really proud, and I know that Bob is as well, to be able to present to young groups such as yourself that really want to be the difference. And that's important. Education, prevention is our greatest hope, okay? Drugs have been around for quite a long time. Prevention has worked. Prevention has worked as far as tobacco smoking, wearing seatbelts, wearing headgear when driving a bike. All these things weren't always in place until education and prevention took place and taught people the truth, taught people a better way. Get educated about drugs and addiction, and we're going to supply you with some of those websites in a few seconds. Have a conversation about drugs, especially with younger siblings and cousins and friends. You're a protective factor, remember that. Eliminate the stigma. Understand what addiction is. Understand it for what the illness for what that it is, and understand that language really matters when it comes to speaking of someone that is struggling with a substance abuse disorder. Understand the impact of the decisions to use drugs. That sets into motion a lot of different things that are hard to turn around sometimes. Get help if you need it, and give help when those are in need. That's really, really important. Understanding that treatment does work, encourage people to move towards treatment if they have a substance abuse disorder. And remember that everyone is part of the solution. Next is some of our slides that we have available. I mean, sorry, the resources that we have.
What is it? Prep for prayer service.
These are some of the resources we have online. Just Think Twice is specifically geared towards teens. Get Smart About Drugs will give you a lot of information about those miscellaneous drugs we spoke to earlier. Next, please. And again, Bob and I want to reiterate that we are always available to you, especially with your drug prevention initiatives, in any way that we can be of assistance. This is our contact number. There's our email information and our cell phone information. So please understand that we are available to you. And again, we thank you for this great opportunity. It was the first virtual presentation that we had, so you really helped us out on this one. And we appreciate and thank the Lions Club as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing that important information today. So what we are actually going to be doing, because when I began, I said that we will be respectful of people's time. And you had such good answers during the polling that I think we might skip the Kahoot sort of survey game and go straight to the question section. So I am going to turn it over to Keith Taylor, who is a community prevention coordinator from the Delaware Prevention Coalition, to ask some of the questions that the youth have submitted during this point in time. So Keith, turning it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Daniel. Once again, I want to say thanks, Frank and Bob, for that great presentation. Right now, we're going to transition into our Q&A section. So I do have a few questions for you. One question that I have from a youth leader here in Delaware: what properties in drugs make them addicting?
Well, for instance, opioids are very strong, and the fact that they actually hijack your brain, and they have caused so much addiction, more than any other drugs right now that caused the epidemic that we're in. So all drugs have different substances, but they actually affect your brain, your dopamine system. And the easiest way to explain it without getting real technical is that, let's take opioids for an example. When you take an opioid, your body has a reward, your brain has a reward system, okay? And when you take something that you really enjoy, it memorizes that, it wants more of it. And that's what happens with opioids. So the properties in opioids cause your brain to want more of that and your body to want more of that. So when you take an opioid, especially a strong painkiller or heroin or fentanyl, your body and brain get a strong sense of euphoria that it may not have ever felt before, and it wants more and more of that. So the substance in that drug and the fact that your brain releases so much dopamine causes you to want more of that. It becomes a cycle. And that's what really causes the addiction. Now, methamphetamine and cocaine are stimulants. They'll have different effects because they actually cause alertness and cause a lot of energy and so forth. But oftentimes they create that sense of euphoria too, that it basically hijacks your brain.
Thank you. The next question I have reads: What drug kills the most people annually?
I would say alcohol is the #1 killer of people in the United States.
Fentanyl has killed more people as far as the illegal drugs at this point for the last several years, and continues to, because as I stated during the presentation, fentanyl is on the streets by itself, and it's also mixed and laced with many other drugs. It's extremely deadly.
Okay, the next question I have is pretty lengthy, so I'm gonna just kind of paraphrase it a little bit. It reads: being as though some adults grew up in a time where marijuana is is an illegal drug, and knowing nowadays that some youth are growing up in areas where marijuana is a legal drug, for medicinal purposes, how would this change affect not only us as youth, but future generations, knowing that drugs have a negative impact on us at this age with a few years of development? How should youth move forward with legislative changes such as marijuana becoming legal in some areas?
I'm going to let Bob answer the majority of this question, but I just want to add that It's part of what I was saying earlier regarding mixed messages. It has become more a complex decision for kids regarding drugs. And when we talk about medical marijuana, Bob and I usually don't get involved with that. But what I'm challenging you to do as young people is to take the information that we provided, and you're going to have to make the best decision for you moving forward. So again, a lot of people do marijuana, and Bob and I often speak with groups that, you know, if there's a 40-some-year-old guy in his bedroom smoking marijuana, that is different than an individual that's young with a brain developing, making the choice to do marijuana. So my personal opinion is that for young people, it really isn't an alternative that they should consider.
And that's a very insightful question. And the reason why, even when we covered marijuana, we spent quite a lot of time on it for a specific reason. And again, we focus on teens and young adults. So hopefully, as legislation, unfortunately, more states are moving toward legalization of marijuana. So that's continuing. But there's additional research needs to be done and many other things. We're not in any way going to question somebody, an adult, making choices in medical marijuana and things like that. It's still illegal federally. But I think the important thing is why we're here today. If we're educating teens and young adults to know the dangers, to know how it impacts them, when they become adults, regardless of legislation, they don't need marijuana for any reason. And there are many medical alternatives to marijuana. Marinol is one. Epidiolex is another one. So really, people that are using marijuana, last thing we need, as far as we're concerned, is another thing to get high on. So I think it goes back to our principle of educating youth and teens, so when they do become adults, they are able to make healthy decisions that are safest for them.
Thank you. The last question I have for you guys is in reference to recovery. It says, knowing that being a part of recovery, you'll experience withdrawal and relapses. Are there any effective treatments for drug addicts or drug addictions?
I would say, first of all, recovery is very complex as well. There's no one simple formula for anyone. Okay, it's very difficult to quit addiction, but treatment works. Professional treatment is so important as far as we know. Now, Frank and I and then DEA, we're not treatment and recovery experts, but we deal a lot with the treatment and recovery field because we want to have a holistic knowledge. So there's medication-assisted treatment, which could include methadone, Suboxone, and other drugs where actually weans people off the strong opioids. There are other medications that you can get involved with. Counseling is very important. It's a holistic approach to many things where one medication may work for one person and for another person it may not work. So I think you have to look at it from a holistic point of view, and it's not just one thing that will help people recover, but from what we've seen and the people that really successfully recovered are involved in a host of different things. It could be medication-assisted treatment. It could be Narcotics Anonymous meetings. It could be counseling. Oftentimes there's a mental health aspect of it that needs to be addressed, because really, when you're talking about addiction, oftentimes there are some underlying mental health issues. And if those issues are not addressed, then the addiction will probably continue, unfortunately. So you have to get to the root cause of why someone's using drugs in the first place. That's why we ask that question every time we talk to any audience.
And if I could add just one thing, Bob and I focus on prevention because I think we know firsthand that addiction is a very difficult struggle. People that are addicted to opioids especially have a high level of relapse, a high occasion of relapse. And it's a very difficult process to get through in life. So what we're trying to do is to tell you as young people, do what you can to avoid that. Because again, we've spoken to many strong people in recovery who every day they wake up with the number one focus being on staying clean. And we would hope that you would want more than that in life. You wouldn't want to have to be bothered with or saddled with that responsibility of consciously trying to stay clean every day of your life. The best alternative that we can suggest is not even go down the road of drugs, period. and avoid a lot of potential issues. So that's why prevention is so important.
Thank you guys so much for the Q&A. We are going to move forward with the next item on our agenda. I do want to say to everyone, if anybody does have any questions that were not answered, feel free to write down their emails and you guys can definitely reach out to them with your questions. But I'm going to hand it back over to Daniel and Kim. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Excellent. So now is when we are getting into talking about an event that has happened for the last several years, and we would like to see it continue. It's an event that is done in partnership with the Philadelphia Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration, and it's called Opioid Awareness Summit Information Saves. And this is actually your opportunity. This is a call to action to all of the youth on the call, wherever you are from. If you are from Florida or Chicago or Delaware or New Jersey, whatever groups that you are working with, whether or not it's the Delaware Prevention Youth Leaders, the Team Zero KOPE Cyber Leos, all of these things, we would like to bring to you an opportunity to work to host an event that will be held virtually for youth around the country. So in the past, we've had this event, this Oasis event in person. And it has been a fun event where we worked on various different levels with Bob and Frank and their offices to come up with ways to engage youth. And in many cases, sort of like younger youth. So we would have the teens work on presentations and activities for youth. So we would like to issue the challenge to you as well. Now I have here actually a video that can show what the event has been in the past. But this is your opportunity to help be innovative, because we have to find out and figure out a way to continue to do prevention work in the field virtually. So this is something that was recorded at the last Oasis, and you can see some of the youth being engaged in the activities that occurred. So let me share this here, and you all can see this was Oasis 2.
Hey guys, we're gonna fire! Say drug free is the best way to be. It's the way I wanna be. I wanna grow strong as a tree. I don't do weed because it's so dumb. I just don't want to be a big fat bum. I just want to be drug free because I'm free and I'm not dumb. And I'm not dumb.
You tell them when to turn around.
Wake up in the morning, I got drug free on my mind. I say no to opiates. That's why I do drug prevention all the time. All the time.
Drug-free is the way to be. Helps you live a long and stay healthy. You have a choice. Use your voice. If you're offered drugs, say no and use your voice. I'm a drug-free kid living a drug-free life.
The less drugs you do, the more life you get. Because if you stay healthy, then you get more life. Because the unhealthy you are, that gives you less life because it goes in your lungs and it makes you feel really icky inside.
Be drug-free. Don't do drugs. That's a bad thing. Bling, bling. All you gotta do is stop drinking. That's what I'm thinking. Boom. Love me. Don't drug me. Boom.
I'm taking my horse to the old town home. Sitting till I can't no more. Do not take free drugs and be healthy. Live long. Stay away from drugs. drugs. And make sure your horses stay away from drugs. If your horse has drugs, you can't ride it to Old Town Road.
Bad for you, right? Cigarettes are legal in adult children, so they can't be bad for kids, right? True or false?
False.
False. Why?
They can mess up a kid's lungs and their brain.
Wow, good job, buddy.
My pledge is to never drink or smoke because cookie is bad for my body, and if I do that, I can do things in the future that I want to do.
Stay drug-free!
So as you can see, that was a fun event where we had kids on all different sorts of levels partaking in this. So for this particular upcoming Oasis, though, since we might have to do a virtual event, we would like to work with you all to help design, TikTok challenges and social media postings surrounding this, but to give you all to do the opportunity to do presentations where each of the groups could actually put together something and then share the information that they have learned with youth from around the country, because we'd like to make it bigger than just Pennsylvania and Delaware and New Jersey, and to invite youth from all over to participate this. And so the one thing that we had talked about prior in working with both Bob and Frank is that they would be willing to come and connect with your individual youth groups over the course of this summer to work on presentations. And I know the Delaware Prevention Youth Leaders have already got a couple of things that they're doing, and I know that the Team Zero from New Jersey has got a presentation, and I've worked with the Edgemores, the Cotleos, but anyone else, if you are wherever you're from, whether or not it's Florida, because I know we have quite a few people who tuned in from Florida today as well, would like to participate in this, we would love to issue the call to action to have you be a part of this, because drug prevention takes a whole community. It takes each and every single one of you to be a part of that. And honestly, like, we can sit here and talk all day long and share drug prevention facts, but youth are going to listen to other youth. So we need to empower you to be those drug prevention advocates. And with that, I would like to just sort of make sure that everybody gets access to Bob and Frank's contact information. The slide was up, but we will also send it out just in case there are additional questions that you might have. If you are with the youth group, please send something to your youth group leader and they will get in touch with that. But to bring this to a close, because it's been exactly 1 hour and 40 minutes, and you guys are all prevention champions for doing that on a Saturday. We truly appreciate you for wanting to make the world a different place, a better place, right? To thank you for coming. We will keep you in the loop, and I'd like to just turn it over for the final word to Kimberly in case she has anything else to wrap it up with this. But what a great way to end National Prevention Week, to have youth from all over come together and learn directly from the source of the Drug Enforcement Administration. So thank you so much. And Kimberly, why don't you take us home, and let's go and enjoy our beautiful Saturdays. And you need to unmute. You look like you were saying something awesome.
Well, I was. You missed the whole thing. Now I'm going to have to try to recreate it. First of all, I want to thank everybody who made this possible. And I think that, in the spirit of the things that we all want to support, which is empowering our youth to become prevention advocates to really start to share these peer messages, you know, I really just kind of wanted to give a couple of seconds because I think that it's important for the youth that are on the call to even just hear a little bit from some of the members of Team Zero in terms of just a couple of things about their experience. And one of the things I would like to invite one of you guys to share is, you know, a little bit, Lion Daniel mentioned that this is an opportunity for youth groups in many different areas to sort of work with their own teams. But we also have a National Youth Planning Committee where we actually meet and support a couple of kids from each team. So I just kind of wanted to give them the opportunity to kind of share what is it like to actually work with other youth that may not be from your own community, to work with other kids from around different areas. And you will have to unmute yourself for me.
Hi, my name is Leo Ronak. I'm from the South Brunswick Leo Club, which is in District 16J. And so basically, you know, KOPE Cyber Chat, it's 5 Leo clubs over a couple different states, Delaware and New Jersey. And this February, we went to the Delaware lockdown hosted by the Bellefonte Lions Club in partnership with KOPE Cyber Lions. And, you know, our club, District 16J, we're the South Brunswick Leo Club, and 8 members of District 16J went to Delaware, and we saw, you know, we went to this lockdown where we created our first social media, our first PSA campaign, and we created a presentation on opioid addiction. And now, you know, for me personally, it was amazing to see, you know, all these people from various different ethnicities, various different backgrounds, because our club is not the most diverse in the world, but, you know, to see all of us coming together, you know, people I've never met before, but we all came together to, you know, sort of battle this issue that transcends all those factors, that transcends your background, that transcends your ethnicity, because again, drug and opioid addiction, it affects everyone. So it was nice to see everyone unite and you know, work together and make presentations and PSAs. And you know, it was kind of beautiful because we all came together. It was great.
Thank you, Vernick. And so I think that was a beautiful way to sort of capture, I think, what our feedback was from the youth around that experience. And I think another question that I wanted to have them share was, you know, really, we started way back in October, and what started as a couple of months to get together to sort of do maybe a PSA or something. Team Zero has stuck it out since October. So I was just curious, you know, what do you think made you stay beyond that initial October project?
All right, so hi, I'm Leonishka Mehta from the South Brunswick Leo Club, and I'm also a member of KOPE's Team Zero. What inspired me to continue being a part of the KOPE Youth Cyber Chat after October's work was truthfully the work that we do. I appreciate the safe space that the Cyber Chat offers and the opportunity to impact my community. I'm really proud to be an advocate of drug prevention and education because I'm able to make a positive impact on society. And honestly, I just love the work that we do, so that's why I continued participating.
Thank you, Nishka. And so I apologize that my technical savvy did not allow me to actually share a project that Team Zero created for National Prevention Week, which was the quarantine bingo. So I know that once everyone is off this call, we'll have like a follow-up email. I will make sure that I send the link for you guys with that. It was a great project. And so I want to just kind of leave the end by saying, oh, well, see, I couldn't get the sound. And so I want to also just kind of ask Team Zero, because when we talk about youth leadership, you know, some of the work that we did beyond October were the activities-based things, but we really relied on Team Zero to give us as the adults the input around, what does this look like for other kids your age, and what do you think it should be like, and what do you need, and how would you want to present this to your friends, and so just kind of if you guys can just kind of give us a little bit of what you think, what you're looking forward to as we do have more of these groups from maybe Florida or Texas and more groups out of New Jersey and Delaware to join the cyber chat.
So Kimberly, I think I can share it. Hold on one second. It should be up on your screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nishka Mehta, and I'm a part of the KOPE Youth Cyber Chat. Us youth at KOPE, which stands for Knights of Prevention and Education, have made a bingo board for everyone to enjoy completing while under quarantine. Our goal is to spread positivity because we are all in this together as one big community. So, let me explain how the bingo board works. It's a twist on classic bingo. Instead of just numbers, we have brainstormed fun activities for you all to complete. The board is filled with tasks related to multiple topics like cooking, organizing, sports, hobbies, and much more. Your goal is to complete and fill in a row of activities, whether horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. Everyone who completes a row gets a shout out on either Facebook or Instagram. Send us a screenshot of your board and your username for either social media platform so we can give you a shout out. Our email is kopebingo@gmail.com. That is KOPEBINGO@gmail.com. Hi.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate you being able to share that. And so this was something that, we were able to create based on what the directions we were given from the youth. And so I would like to just kind of let you guys just kind of share what your thoughts are in terms of, what are you looking forward to as we involve more and more people in this effort?
Hi, I'm Leo Amar Sheed from District 16J. I'm a part of the South Brunswick Leo Club, and I'm also a member of KOPE Team Zero. As more and more youth join the National Youth Planning Committee, there are going to be more people that are like-minded and can help bring this club forward. And to help accomplish our goals, it's going to be a lot easier for us to do it. And it also makes it feel like we're not alone. There are other people that feel the same way that we do, and there's more of a support system.
Well, thank you, Leo Amar. So I want to really thank Team Zero. They have really been excellent partners in prevention. They've been an excellent youth committee to work with, and we honor their input by doing our best to support the things that they're doing. So as we close, I think that this has really been a great opportunity, and I want to thank Frank and Bob for their enthusiasm. When we brought this idea to them, they worked. We were on the calls almost every other day. And I think that this is going to be an exciting step in moving forward, to maybe have, even as you guys go out and create your individual groups, to have spaces like the Oasis. There's the CACA conference that's coming up in 2020. There are a number of things that are going on. So we are definitely looking forward to keeping in touch with everyone. When you all close off of this webinar and are gone about your days, we will make a follow-up just to give you a more formal invitation to let us know if you're interested in participating in activities like this, if you may be looking for an existing cyber chat to join forces with, and definitely to make sure that if you guys have any additional questions about the cyber chat, about the town hall, about any of the contents that the DEA presented today, we want to make sure that we're available to you all. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us on this Saturday morning towards afternoon, and I want to make sure everyone has a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Have a good day, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again.
Everybody.
Thank